Let's get to Alec's credibility segment where he tells us what's going on.
I know things.
You know, Alec knows things, and he is going to impart them onto us. I have a list of football positions in front of me, and so what we're going to do here is I am going to go position to position. I'm going to give Alec... Well, let's give him some music first. Okay? Because everything sounds better with dramatic music. So the first thing, Alec... I'm going to go to the position I'm most interested in every single year, the wide receivers. Tell me about the Rutgers wide receivers, Alec.
So I think this is going to be the deepest the position has been over the last few years. Some new players. You got Demir Miller coming in from Monmouth. Christian Dremel's still there in the slot. Those are the two guys that are kind of locked into starting spots. It's that third one that's still kind of up for grabs, whether it's Nazim Brantley, who's finally eligible after he missed last year, or Ian Strong, who showed flashes of being pretty good in his true freshman season. Remains to be seen. There's also some good depth options. Chris Long is back after suffering an injury in the first game of the season. KJ Duff, true freshman. Fama Toure, redshirt freshman. Dylan Braithwaite, a redshirt freshman. There's a lot of young guys that can do a lot of different things. Ben Black is a complete burner. He might get some run as well. There was a lot of praise for him in spring practices and even in training camp too. So a pretty deep position with a lot of young talent.
Wow, that was so good. All right, Alec, let's go over defensive end.
All right, defensive end, I mean, might be the best in terms of high-end talent, in terms of the position groups for Rutgers. You got Aaron Lewis. He's back for another year. Same with Leslie Bailey. They both could have gone to the NFL. I think they both would have had a chance to get selected, but they decided to come back. That should be a really good bookend for the defensive line for the Scarlet Knights. The thing that they need to work on is finishing plays. They get a lot of pressures, but not a ton of sacks, and I think that's a thing that, you know, the coaching staff has really recognized. Shiano has said it too. Want to look into getting more of, and they also have a new position coach as well. Only for defensive ends. But behind those two, there's also Jordan Thompson, a redshirt junior, Jibril Abdurrahman, a Canadian guy, and the two deep, as well as DJ Allen. A lot of talent on that defensive line. Definitely can be one of the deeper position groups on the team, and particularly the end spot, especially with the new coaching positions on the defensive end. So in terms of high-end talent, I think defensive end is one of the best positions on the team.
All right, let's go out to linebacker. What do we got for linebacker? This is a place where a lot of people have a lot of questions.
Yeah, well, a lot more questions now because Mohamed Toure tore his ACL, unfortunately. Just got to feel awful for him. For the second time in 3 years, he'll miss this season. But next to him is going to be Tyreen Powell back after breaking his hand, I believe, and then tearing his Achilles in the rehab during winter. So, I mean, this linebacking core has dealt with some injuries, but Tyreen Powell remains to be seen whether he'll be fully back by the start of the season or if they'll kind of take him easy in the first two games. And then behind him, I mean, there's some solid depth. You got Daryl Jabome and Moses Walker. Walker was a highly touted recruit coming out of New York in the class of 2022. Has kind of dealt with some injuries of his own. Two other guys that Shiano has mentioned in that linebacking room, Abram Wright and Timmy Heinspader. Wright actually had an interception in the Pinstripe Bowl, had a really nice play in coverage. I thought he was Cameron Stewart because he was wearing number 11 instead of number 13. Cameron Stewart actually won the defensive end job at Temple, but that's, you know, not Rutgers related. But yeah, this linebacking core, there's going to be some questions, but there's still a lot of talent. I think even without Toure, it's going to be really hard to replace him, and that kind of goes into the defensive ends as well, but I think they can do it with the talent that they have.
There is always a player on Greg Schiano's roster named Timmy Hinsbitter who's trying to battle for playing time. All right, let's go back to the offense. Let's look at quarterback. Everyone's heard about Alec Mattis. How are we looking?
Of course. I mean, he's going to be the guy that's relied on to make the easy plays. He looks good. He showed flashes of being really good at Minnesota under Kirk Shiraka in his freshman year. Struggled without him last year, but now they're reunited together. The guy who recruited him out of high school. He won the starting job in spring over Gavin Wimsatt, and Wimsatt ended up transferring to Kentucky. Behind him, Ajani Shepard won the quarterback 2 job. Not too proven in the big situations. His only game experience has been against Wagner in the spring game, but he's looked solid. He's got good athleticism. So, I mean, if he needs to play in a pinch, I don't think it'll be too much of a disaster. And then A.J. Sarace, touted as the future at the position for Rutgers. He's got a really good arm. Son of Bob Sarace, the Princeton head coach, so you know he's been trained for his whole life to play college football. And those are the 3 deep at quarterback. And I think Alec Mattis I think he has another year after this year too, so we'll see how they progress as the year goes on.
I had an idea from the old RU Screw Pod back when I was making those songs. Someone had the idea for, instead of Poker Face by Lady Gaga, Bob Sarace, but they didn't hire Bob Sarace.
No, they didn't.
That could have worked out. Let's go over to tight end, a position that has been a little bit weak, I think, over the last decade or so, but how are we looking at tight end?
It's going to be interesting. So the guy that's currently, it seems like, in the lead to start at that position is Kenny Fletcher, who is a defensive end who converted over to tight end around not mid-season, but later on in the season. He actually played tight end in the Pinstripe Bowl. So we'll see how he does with a full offseason of tight end work. And then behind him are tight ends, but not as proven. You got Victor Konopka, who's dealt with injuries and some inefficiency in his career, but he is a great athlete and is huge at 6'7". And then you also got Mike Higgins and Logan Blake, who are younger guys who are trying to grow into the position as well. So it's not really a position that Kirk Ciarrocca likes to use in his offense in terms of passing the ball, but kind of as an extra run blocker. So we'll see how they develop as the year goes on.
Special teams, what do we got?
Well, special teams, it's always a Greg Schiano staple. At place kicker and probably kickoff specialist now with Jude McAtamney gone and kicking for the Giants. Probably going to be Jay Patel again, all Big Ten honorable mention last year, one of the better kicking seasons that Rutgers has had. At punter, no more Flynn Appleby. He decided to leave the program. Then Michael Hartshorn, who was the other punter who punted in the spring game, he also opted to transfer out. He's now at Susquehanna at the JUCO level. Now coming in is another Aussie, Jacob Anderson from Pro Kick, and we all obviously know Pro Kick Australia produced Adam Corsack, Flynn Appleby, and now Jacob Anderson. And then at the long snapper position, it was a sneaky weakness, I want to say, for Rutgers last year at long snapper, but they brought in a guy in Austin Riggs who started for 4 years at BYU, actually got beat out by his brother. That's why he transferred, his younger brother. He is also on the older end because he actually was on I believe a 2-year mission trip with BYU. So a lot of experience and a lot of age on the long snapper end. And for the return game, I don't really know what their plan is. It's probably going to be putting Kristen Dremel back there again. It's just a sure-handed guy. I forget who said. I think it was Richie O'Leary with the Night Report who said they're not really looking to. They don't really have a punt returner because they're looking to block so much. They more so have a punt catcher. So as long as they have someone who can catch the ball and not lose it, I think Greg Schiano is happy with that.
It seems like I'd have to look it up, but it seems like punt returns are down a little bit over however many years. Not just for Rutgers, but just for in general. It just seems harder to get a return going. I think, no, we said quarterback, we need to get to running back. How could I forget running back? What do we got for running back?
Well, of course, I mean, what else can you say about Kyle Monungai coming back for his senior year? Led the Big Ten in rushing last year, and he's back and probably better than ever. Behind him is going to be Sam Brown, the fifth. He suffered that season-ending injury against Indiana his freshman year after having that breakout game, and he kind of was struggling to find his footing as the season went on, but in the Pinstripe Bowl, I think he had his best game in terms of just how he looked. He showed a lot of flashes of his old self with his burst off the line of scrimmage, and he's probably going to take up a lot of the carries that Gavin Wimsatt's leaving off too, because Wimsatt carried the ball over 130 times last year, so someone's going to need to bring in that carry load, and I think it'll be Sam Brown if he looks like he did in the Pinstripe Bowl over a full season. Behind those two, you got Deshaun Benjamin, who showed flashes as that third down change of pace back. As a freshman, made a couple of really nice highlight reel plays. He's probably going to be in that same role in his sophomore season. Then you got the trio freshmen, Gabe Winovich, Ed Guerriere, and Antoine Raymond, who actually reclassified. The staff is really high on him. They probably won't make too much of an impact, but you never know with Guerriere, Winovich, and Raymond. You never know. Those three freshmen, they got a lot of talent, so we'll see how they can impact the running back room.
All right, and then I think last but not least, we have cornerback. Oh, we get the defensive tackles. Let's go cornerback, or just secondary.
All right, secondary. Yeah, we'll go secondary. All right, yeah, the secondary I think can be another one of the strengths for Rutgers, kind of the common theme on the defense. You lose Max Melton, one of the very few guys you actually lose from the starters on defense, but coming back is Robert Longerbeam, who I would say in many stretches played better than Max Melton last year at that cornerback spot, so he's back. Eric Rogers is back for a second season. He was solid in his first year. That's a really good two cornerbacks to have, especially in the Big Ten. And then in the slot, it's kind of a bit of a battle between a guy like Bo Masco, who only played one game last year in the Pinstripe Bowl, but has been kind of rising up in those ranks in the secondary. You got guys like that. Maybe Shaquan Loyal or Desmond McVinooson. Those are two more safeties, but we'll see. They kind of like to play the 5 defensive backs, the 4-2-5 defense. Speaking of the safeties, so you got Flip Dixon coming back. He probably could have been a draft pick as well last year, but he decided to come back for one more year. His second season at Rutgers, he was awesome last year. And then at the other safety spot, I already mentioned Shaquan Loyal and Desmond McVinooson. kind of see where they fall in and whether it'll be Masco or a guy like Al-Shadi Salam at the third cornerback spot who moved over from running back last year and has great speed at the position. He's starting to learn it a little bit more. So that slot corner spot is going to be interesting to see where it goes from there. And I mean, we could see Igbeneusen, Loyal, and Dixon on the field at the same time. Igbeneusen's kind of like one of those in-the-box safeties that likes to play at sort of like a linebacker spot, but also is a safety size and range. So I think this Rutgers secondary can be very strong once again. They got a lot of talent. It's just a matter of working it all out.
And with the depth they have in the secondary and the problems potentially at linebacker, and because, it's 2024 and teams are playing, 5, 6 defensive backs pretty often, that you'd think would be an advantage for Rutgers having the depth that they do and playing more defensive backs on the field, especially because we know Greg Schiano, look at all of the defensive backs that have been developed over the years. How many NFL defensive backs have he had over the last, since he started here? So that would be that. And then we have defensive tackles. What do we got on the interior line?
Yeah, interior, they bring back Keontae Hamilton. I don't want to say he's been a disappointment at Rutgers, but he hasn't totally transformed into a star defensive lineman that maybe people expected, but he's still a very solid one, a good one to have. Then they also brought in Malcolm Ray from Florida State. He was fighting for a depth position, decided to enter the transfer portal in the winter, chose Rutgers. That's a huge guy that has a lot of big game experience as well. And then behind those two, it'll be Troy Rainey and Zaire Angoy, who has kind of gotten a little bit of buzz as a guy who could potentially crack that starting rotation. Troy Rainey as well. And then you got Keshawn Griffin and Jazeer Peterson, who more depth guys in real life, but in College Football 25, the video game, they have turned into complete game wreckers for whatever reason.
And then, wait, we do have one more. Offensive line. We have offensive line.
Yeah, offensive line. Pat Flaherty, the work that he did last year with that unit, you can't say enough about. He's just a Hall of Famer. That's what he is. And many years in the NFL as well. So I think it's going to be a mostly set offensive line as of right now. You got Holland Pierce coming back for one more year. Noticing a common theme of guys coming back for one more year, those seniors. Holland Pierce at the left tackle spot. Then Brian Felter has really blossomed nicely. He'll probably start at left guard. Gus Zielinski has actually beat out Ireland Brown, who got a training camp invite in the NFL as a backup. So that's pretty impressive. And Zielinski's had a really good year last year. He's looking to build on it in one of his last years starting. The right side is where it could be a little bit of shuffling. There's a few different options you can go to. It seems like right guard might be Kobe Asamoah. He's developed nicely. I believe he's a third year this year. It could be either him or it could be the transfer from Ohio, Shedrick Rhodes. Has a lot of starting experience there. He started at right tackle and at right guard at times for Ohio. He could really go in either way. They got him in the spring transfer portal window. So Rhodes could either start in at right guard or right tackle. Tyler Needham is back after suffering a season-ending injury against Temple last year. He's also competing for that starting spot. Then you got Reggie Sutton as well, in I believe his 6th year of college football, and the story that he's been able to build for himself coming back from that devastating knee injury 3 years ago. It's been absolutely insane. And the fact that he is still playing and also fighting for a starting spot on a good offensive line.
Well, they told him to retire, right?
Yeah.
They told him it's time to retire, and he said, no, I'm going to keep going.
And he even started a few games too, mostly because of the injury to Needham. But it wasn't like he was a complete turnstile at right tackle.
Well, they're not going to put someone out there, that can't play, right? So
yeah, so I think the right tackle position is going to be very telling, who they go out with in that first drive against Howard, where they go with the rest of the line. But I think the left side set, the right, it has about 3 or 4 guys for 2 spots that could compete. But yeah, I think it's in a really good spot, and I'm excited to see the progression that they take in year 2 under Pat Flaherty.
That was 12 minutes of straight Rutgers football information directly into your brain from Alec. That was incredible.